current event article I will be covering today is focused on the topic we are currently discussing in class, interstate wars. It specifically highlights the recent events of the long-running Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The article is from the New York Times and is titled, Options Dwindling, Palestinian Leader Calls for UN Peace Conference. To be able to fully understand the content of the article, I believe it is important that I first explain the contextual events in relation to the topic at hand. Ensuing current events described in this article have to do with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This interstate war started on the basis of a disagreement over who should obtain and occupy the Holy Land, which I will go into more detail about in the next slide. Originally, the conflict between the two started after the UN broke up what was then British Palestine in 1947 into two sections, one for the Jews, which became Israel, and one for the Arabs, which became Palestine. It is important to note that Jerusalem became an international zone that was not allocated to either side officially. This plan was made in order to give Palestine independence and the Jews statehood. The Jews accepted this plan, however, the Palestinians saw this as another form of European colonialism. This sparked warfare between the two sides that lasted from 1948 to 1949 and led to Israel winning and subsequently pushing well past their borders proposed in the UN deal, including taking the western half of Jerusalem, which was supposed to be neutral. Over the next few decades, there were multiple failed peace accords and agreements, along with multiple armed conflicts and violent intifadas, which were supported by the Palestinian regime. The common misconception about this conflict is that it has been going on for centuries and centuries, but it is really only about 100 years old, if that. This is an extremely complex conflict, as there have been many key actors. Of course, Palestine and Israel are the main two, but there have been many key actors dealing with it, trying to achieve peace and correctly distribute the territories to calm and ease tensions within the Middle East. However, these efforts have proved ineffective. Neither the Jewish Zionist Project in Israel nor the Palestinian National Project will come to terms of peace, nor will they allow the other side to obtain the territory that they both believe is theirs respectively. You might be thinking to yourself, why this much hassle over pieces of land? The Holy Land is not like any other land in the entire world, though. The Holy Land is an area that is roughly located between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. It is synonymous with the biblical land of Israel and the region of Palestine, which lead both sides to claim that the Holy Land should be under their rule. As you can see on the screen, the two parts of the Holy Land include the Gaza Strip, which is near Egypt, and the West Bank, which is near Jordan. The Holy Land holds most of the sites that are sacred to Christians, Jews, and Muslims, which is another reason why it is so valuable, and that peace on who should truly be able to rule the land has never been found. It is also important to note that Jerusalem is a part of this Holy Land, and both sides believe that it is theirs. However, neither claim is widely recognized internationally. Both sides believe that it is their capital. Now that we understand the context behind the article, we can delve right into it. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who you can see on the left here, has called for a UN peace conference to be held in early 2021 to help solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This request seems to reflect the notion that President Abbas sees that recent events, including the proposed agreements brokered by the Trump administration, severely favor Israel and threaten to marginalize Palestine. So we all know that President Trump is a big-time supporter of Israel, so we can see where this thought process from President Abbas is coming from. The Trump administration mediated agreements between Israel with Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates in order to revitalize relations between these countries. President Abbas believes these changes could redefine the power dynamics in the Middle East, and in Palestine's case, for the worst. President Abbas has announced these agreements as he believes that the USA has favored Israel in its foreign policies. He also believes that these agreements undermine the Palestinian aspirations for statehood, and has also accused both the UAE and Bahrain of betraying Arab solidarity. Arab solidarity espouses the unification of all Arab nations. On top of this, President Abbas made his criticisms clear, stating that the only path to peace between the two nations is for Israel to withdraw from all occupied territories and for Palestine to be recognized as an independent state with the original pre-1967 borders. These criticisms directly conflict with President Trump's proposal that would give chunks of the West Bank back to Israel and would leave Palestine with the mere possibility of statehood with limited sovereignty. All of these events have seemed to immensely favor Israel, so it makes sense that it has led President Abbas to submit a request to the United Nations to hold a peace conference in early 2021 to fully resolve the conflict peacefully. This, however, is not a guarantee to be convened. There are still many uncertain variables left to play, particularly the United States presidential election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. The USA see themselves as a groundbreaking peacemaker in the Middle East, so the result of this election will definitely have an influence on the outcome on if this UN conference will happen or not, and the overall outcome of this conflict. This current event article directly relates to what we've been discussing in class recently, as it talks about the recent events of a long-lasting interstate war between Israel and Palestine. This conflict has led to the organized use of force by both states, and the conflict has most definitely surpassed the threshold of severity, which is usually marked at 1,000 battle fatalities. The reason for this warfare for both sides is to obtain the Holy Lands and their own respective statehoods. I believe that this can be summed up by the quote on the screen. The purpose of warfare is not to fight, but to obtain, through fighting or the threat of fighting, something that a state wants. I believe this can also be explained through international relations. In this case, the key reasons for this interstate war are contiguity and power distribution. Out of all the grand theories, I believe that constructivism best describes this conflict. The key actors in this sense are both states, Israel and Palestine, as well as international influencers that have had an effect on the conflict since the start or even recently, most notably the USA and the UN. Also, the primary goal of the states are their identities and prevailing norms. Both identify with the territory and believe it is rightfully theirs, and prevailing norms promulgated through their respective religions and cultures support this claim. Furthermore, I like how constructivism could explain cooperation in this conflict. Both Israel and Palestine could potentially see mutual gains, but refuse to, as they believe that the land is theirs and theirs only, partly due to the fact that two nations do not share the same values, nor do they share the same prevailing norms. It is an all or nothing situation. And I believe that in this conflict, the cooperation could also tie into realism's outlook on power, that all gains are relative. One state's loss cannot be another state's gain. The two discussion questions I have for the class go as follows. Do you believe that the actions by the Trump administration were just and fair to both Israel and Palestine, or was the administration just attempting to serve their own interest? Is President Abbas right in his criticisms of these agreements, or is he just attempting to serve the interests of Palestine instead of promoting peace and fairness? That is all. Thank you.